And we're live. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. We are now going to be moving on to our second speaker, who is Fahmida Affreen, a 17-year-old from Bangladesh. In her talk, she will be sharing her knowledge of cancer and the experience she has had of witnessing a relative face the disease. We are so grateful that you are here with us at our event. Feel free to begin whenever you are ready.
Thank you so much, Priya. Hello, everyone. Today, I'm going to walk you through my maternal aunt's cancer journey. I've seen her journey pretty closely. She's my mother's own sister. She's a mother of three children, and her story started in 2010 when she first noticed a lump in her left breast. Her eldest daughter then was a sixth grader. Her second daughter was a fifth grader, and her youngest daughter was around 5 years old. So, before I begin with the journey, I'd like to tell you something about her. Always, she has been the kind of a person who is always up for listening to and trying to solve others' difficulties, but she rarely opens up about her own. So, even all these years, she has been very strong, confident, and optimistic. There have been moments when I have seen that my other family members, maybe they couldn't just hold themselves back, they have broken into tears in front of her, but she remained firm and she's always smiling. You can guess that she is going through so much just by seeing her. So when she noticed that lump first, um, we didn't know it just then. We got to know about it almost a year later. At first, what she did was she opted for homeopathic treatment because maybe she thought that it would be a painless process and maybe the tumor would go away easily that way. But so she followed that regimen for quite some time, only to find that the tumor has grown bigger. That's when she and her family got alarmed and they decided to switch to conventional or allopathic medicine. Um, she lives in a southwestern division of Bangladesh, which is called Khulna, but most of the cancer treatment centers of Bangladesh, they are very centralized towards the capital Dhaka. And before we go to how she started her treatment, I'd like to tell you about the situation of cancer care in Bangladesh. So, firstly, the hospitals. The hospitals in Bangladesh can be grouped into two broad categories. The first one being the government hospitals. So, these hospitals have really well trained and experienced doctors. They have they provide good care to patients and they're really affordable for anyone. So, the middle class or even low income families of our country, who constitute the majority actually, they largely count on these government hospitals. But the problem here is that since there are so many patients, the patients are almost always found to outnumber the doctors, hospital staff, and other available facilities there. In fact, you will find pictures on the newspaper that people who are unable to find hospital beds for themselves are receiving treatment lying on the hospital corridors or even stairways. So, in the next category, there are the private hospitals. These hospitals too have good physicians. They're really sound technologically as well. But the problem is that they're way too expensive, beyond the reach of middle class people. In fact, only a small bubble of people who are the wealthy ones, they can afford to get treated in these hospitals. And the number of uh, well trained oncologists in Bangladesh is quite low compared to the number of cancer patients we have every year. And most of the doctors, they are very centralized towards the secondary and tertiary hospitals in the urban areas, Dhaka in particular. So my maternal aunt and her family, they also decided that she would get her treatment done in Dhaka. So they came to Dhaka and got started with her treatment. So this is Khulna, as you can see on the map. And here is Dhaka. Okay, so I remember she would go to the hospital, and they would have to spend long and exhausting hours there. They would have to wait for getting the test done, for the doctor's appointment, and so on. So at first, the doctor suggested her a cycle of chemotherapy, but before they started the treatment, they went to Kolkata in India just to get a second opinion that the regimen was okay and that she can follow this. So the doctors there in Kolkata said that yeah, it was okay, and they would have suggested the same treatment as well. So it was okay, and so she came back to Bangladesh. She did her chemotherapy, and then she even underwent a surgery. Her left breast was removed, and after the surgery she was supposed to have some follow-ups. The follow-ups were, they got less and less frequent gradually. At first, for example, after 1 month, then after 3 months, then 6 months, and afterwards every year. So, and another thing is that while she and her husband, they were in Dhaka, she left her children, her three daughters, and my aunt's parents-in-law at their house in Khulna. So, and her parents-in-law were also aged and they had their own health complications as well. I've seen my cousins managing their schoolwork, the household, running errands, and taking care of their grandparents, everything at the same time. And maybe that's the reason they have matured much earlier than I did. So, um, and basically, cancer wasn't the only problem that she and her family were facing. Then there's the financial aspect of it, starting from medicines to diagnostic tests, then consultation fees. Everything amounted to a huge sum of money. They've even had to sell some of their land for coping with the treatment costs. So after 6 months of her surgery, she went back to Khulna, and she would come occasionally for those follow-ups. But what happened was, after 3 or 4 years, for some reason, they missed a follow-up. They couldn't come for some reason. So the following time when they came, they found that the cancer had relapsed. So before this relapse, everything seemed to be falling in place. But I mean, she even started taking her own responsibilities at home in spite of being forbidden at times. Um, so this relapse kind of turned everything upside down all over again. Um, and this time they got to know that the cancer had spread to her bone tissues as well. So this time my maternal grandparents, they suggested that she go to India again, and just for like better treatment options. So she went to Chennai this time, and the doctors there conducted a full body checkup over there. And shockingly, the doctors found out that the main medicine that she has been taking all this while, the dosage of that medicine was somewhat wrong. So the doctor changed the dosage, and he asked her to um, like revisit him after a month. So she had to stay that month there in Chennai. That was another hassle, because they had to acclimatize to the weather, the food, accommodation, everything. So after 1 month, when she revisited the doctor, he found her conditions to be a bit improving, and he prescribed her some injections. So she would have to take those injections each month, if I'm not wrong. And so she came to Bangladesh. She was at her own home, and she would take those injections regularly. She went to Chennai in 2016, and she has taken those injections until 2019. So, but meanwhile, she didn't get any scans done. So, in 2019, I remember she had come to Dhaka. Everything was going normal, but one evening, suddenly she started having, continuous and non-stop tremors in one of her legs. I mean, they weren't just ready to stop. So that night she was admitted to a hospital. She stayed there for the night, and subsequently she got her PET CT scans done. But this time we got a news that was worse, that this cancer, this time it had metastasized to different organs, including her brain and her liver. So they went to Kolkata and they started another cycle of chemotherapy this time. And she was like just a few days after she came back from Kolkata, the pandemic started, and her treatment came to a grinding halt because, for the fear of contracting the virus, they couldn't go to the hospital, neither in Dhaka nor to India. So uh, suddenly, recently, I mean, a month earlier, she got ill. Um, so we were all very worried about what to do now. Luckily, they found an oncologist in her town, and they consulted her, consulted him, and she's now following his prescription, and she's doing fine these days. And actually, her fight is still going on. So I really request everyone who's watching this now to keep her in your prayers, because all we want now is that she live a healthier, happier, and peaceful life. And we want her to be among us uh, for as long as possible. So yeah, that was about it. You can ask questions if you have any. Yeah.
Of course. Thank you so much for sharing such a personal story to you. We really appreciate it. So, we have a few questions. The first one being that, you mentioned the story and of your family member. And do you think that throughout this entire process, the multiple occurrences of cancer, do you think that she was supported throughout her journey by family, friends, the doctors?
Okay. So yeah, I would say that her family tried, as far as they could. I remember my father once talking about her husband, that he has been very patient in terms of like through all these processes. But I would want to say one thing, that even if, like, if a cancer patient is watching this, I would say to her that even if you feel that nothing's wrong, if everything appears to be good from the outside, you should never like stop your treatment midway or neglect it, because that can lead to worse consequences. Yeah.
Definitely. And it's always important. We were just talking about this with the previous speaker, that it's always important to keep advocating for yourself as well. So not only just, as you mentioned, like stopping the treatment because you think everything's fine, but also continuing to push for something when you know something's wrong within you. So that's been a lesson that we've seen throughout the entirety of our event. So yeah. And did you feel supported by your community as you went through the experience of watching someone face cancer?
Yeah, I think I did. I mean, I could always share this to my friends, and they have always been very supportive and caring. They knew what me and my family were going through, and I think my parents too have also been very supportive. And everyone I've met, they've always wished well for her and trying to be as much supportive as they could, I guess.
Mhm, mhm, definitely. And going on more of a bigger scale, do you think that there's enough awareness and education around cancer in Bangladesh? And if not, what do you think we as youth can do as the next generation?
Okay. I think recently, on World Cancer Days or other such significant days, some seminars are being held, but most of them are in the urban areas again. But a cancer or any disease, it doesn't discriminate. It can happen to anyone, even in the remotest villages. So I think especially the stigma is more around, I think, breast cancer or cervical cancer, often women are very hesitant to open up about them. So I think we need to just reach out. We have to make the last mile connectivity, and we still have a long way to go. And as far as the youth is concerned, I think we should, as Cancer Together is doing, um, like, I got to know a lot about cancer after I joined. So yeah, I think we should just get as much of the youth involved as possible in all throughout the country. Um, yeah, I think that can help.
Definitely. I don't have any more questions, but if anyone watching does, make sure to leave them in the YouTube chat, or if you're on the Slido, put it down in the Slido, and I will forward them over, and I will send you guys Fahmida's replies. Fahmida, thank you so much for being here. We are so grateful to have you talk at our event, and your story was extremely and moving as we got to, see a little personal bit. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm very, very happy to be here. Yeah.
For those watching, the next session will begin in around 5 minutes. So I will end this live stream and start up another one, and it will go by the name Affreen Parveen Open Mic. So make sure to join that one. And once again, thank you so much for being here.